Hello, all. For those of you that I haven't met before, my name is Liz Wright, and I'm a professor of psychology at North Assista College in San Antonio, Texas. I like to do these videos for a couple reasons. One, to help folks who are interested in learning more about psychology learn about different stuff that's going on, and two, to help my students see the different research areas within psychology, because I think many times students come into psychology assuming that it's really all about clinical psychology. So we're all focusing on abnormal psychology, looking at psychological disorders and treatment. I talk to a lot of students who say that they want to be a therapist or that they want to be a psychiatrist, and maybe not realizing that there's lots of different research areas within psychology that they can focus on. So one of the things I want to talk about today is a research study I was reading this afternoon about multilingualism and cognitive abilities. And so if you grew up in a household where more than one language was spoken, you learned typically that, person A speaks this language and person B speaks that language, or that, language A is spoken at home while language B is spoken at school. So there are different kind of experiences that we have as multilingual individuals. So what this research study was looking at was the cognitive abilities of 7 to 12-year-old children who grew up in multilingual households. And what they found is that children who grew up in a multilingual household had better inhibition skills. So they were able to kind of recognize that, hey, I shouldn't do this, or stop myself from doing this. They had better abilities to swap their focus, so to move from one task to another, so it would increase cognitive flexibility, and it also helped with creativity. And so one of the other interesting things that this article looked at, and I'll actually link it in the about section for this video, is they looked at children diagnosed with autism versus children who did not have a child diagnosed with autism in the family. And they found that even for children who had autism, that there were these increased cognitive abilities when they came from a multilingual household. So for those of you who don't know, I have been diagnosed with autism. Both of my children have been diagnosed with both autism and ADHD. And so autism research is always interesting to me, just to see, what people are looking at and what they're interested in finding, and what they're finding, obviously, in terms of looking at children with autism, adults with autism, teens with autism. So from my personal experience, I love languages, and I do think that learning languages has helped me in terms of cognitive shifting, because in certain instances you have to speak this language, as opposed to in this instance you have to speak this language and you have to swap. So it has helped me being able to shift cognitively, language wise, but also in terms of maybe deciding how to present yourself. So, masking autistic symptoms in certain situations as opposed to non-masking in other social situations. Um, I have, my youngest is 12, and they, both of my kids actually had, they went to a home daycare that ended up having a very small number of children, to the point where many days it was just the two of them. So it was almost like they had a nanny as opposed to being at a home daycare, because she would take them into places and do errands and take them to restaurants and have lunch with them. And she only spoke Spanish. And so for the first 3 years of their lives, both of my kids heard English and Spanish. So English from me and dad, and then Spanish from Miss Isela. And I wish that we had maintained that experience, because within a couple of years, both of my kids were just like, I don't remember any Spanish. It's like, and that just makes me sad because I love languages. As I said, Spanish, French, both of those I enjoy learning and speaking. And so this year, my youngest, who is 12, who also has cognitive challenges, um, was placed into a Spanish class because it fit into his schedule, quote unquote. What we didn't realize at the time was that it was actually a high school credit level Spanish class. So my seventh grader with cognitive delays is in a high school Spanish class without support, aside from the fact that the teacher knows that he has learning disabilities and that he has a plan and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, it is definitely taking him longer to learn the things that his classmates are learning. It takes him longer to process the reading portions. It takes him longer to process the auditory portions. He can generally pick out pieces, but he still has trouble with a lot of what he's been learning in Spanish. But he's had that challenge for a long time of it takes him longer to pick up stuff, but once he gets it, he gets it. And sometimes he'll come home from school and he'll come in the front door and he'll say, "Hola, mama," and I'm like, "Hola, Sage." Like, okay, they were speaking Spanish today. So yeah, multilingualism is definitely beneficial for kids. We've known this for a really long time. This study just adds to it in terms of cognitive flexibility, and in terms of helping children to be able to recognize that they should, stop working on something and do something else. I will say, it was a really small sample size. So we're looking at about 100 participants, but at the same time, as the amount of time spent with each participant increases, the number of participants that you can study, there's only 24 hours in a day type deal, does decrease. So I will put the link to that article in the area at the bottom so you can read it if you are interested. And if you've read any interesting autism research in the past couple of weeks, feel free to share it with me in the comments. Thanks.